Crossbows in Elden Ring might be some of the worst weapons for beating the bosses with. Not necessarily because they're bad or slow or because my arms get tired pulling the string back, but because of the fact that they don't scale with any stats. You see, most weapons have stat scaling. Now, what is stat scaling? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask. Stat scaling is how each weapon grows in power based on your strength, dexterity, faith, whatever. Most weapons have a grade from E, D, C, B, A, or S, with S being the best. The higher the grade and the higher the stat, the higher your damage will be. Makes more sense than schoolwork, right? However, crossbows slap you in the face, spit on you, suplex slam you, and sleep with your wife and say, "I don't think so." Therefore, they have no scaling. This means you could be level 800 and do the same damage as someone who's barely able to even use the weapon. Therefore, levels don't matter other than for health or stamina, and maybe defense if you really want to go there, but who levels stats for +1 defense every 20 levels? Now that that's out of the way though, let's get back to the weapon of choice, the ARBALEST. You see, the ARBALEST is the quote-unquote strongest crossbow in the game simply due to base damage. There's other crossbows that'll outperform it based on whether you're using status effects, but the ARBALEST is what we're using because of reasons. The reason being is that I randomly picked it in a randomizer and now here it is. Now that all the boring intro stuff is out of the way, let's get on to the bosses. So first up we have Margit. Just kidding, we had to beat him to get the weapon in the first place, so instead we have Godric. Godric is so silly and hilarious, and I mean just hilarious. He loves dragons, and that's funny because he likes to fist them. So Godric has an interesting mechanic where he does a spin that's so fast it creates a literal wind tornado around him that deflects the ARBALEST bolts. Pretty snazzy and cool if you ask me, however I'm not laughing. He does this move and it does absolutely nothing for him because I just stop shooting and wait. But that's not all. Not only does he use his power of the Wind Waker to control the wind, he rolls in the dirt and grass and mud like some dirty pig. A disgusting pig rolling around on the ground like he does has no care in the world. Considering I don't have access to different arrows like Bleed and Frost, I have to do this the long and hard way where I just slam into him with pure damage until he decides it's time to rip his dragon a new one. And I mean, he really tears into it. Now that he's harnessed the power of the Dragon Tails, he breathes super hot fire all around the arena. Even after his change into being dragon sexual, old habits don't die because he keeps rolling around like a toddler. This is sick. He's shooting goo from his dragon and rolling in dirt and mud. There's 100% a chance that I contract a disease if I get caught anywhere near his little game. The battle ends exactly how you would expect, with him rolling into a corner, and ultimately he succumbs to a sick disease that he tried spreading to everyone. After laying the smackdown on Godric, we move on to a literal dog. I mean, there's not much to say. He's a rambunctious pooch that's destroying the entire library with no care in the world about the owners. Whoever this Radagon fellow is needs to take better care of his animals, because look at this. All this knowledge he's destroying, think of how many Lamborghinis I could have had with all this knowledge. The fact of the matter is, the Red Wolf reads my inputs and spot dodges ARBALEST bolts like he's a pro Smash player. He's got perfect dodges, perfect counters, perfect acrobatic form, and a perfect Clifford the Big Red Dog mane. Shame that his owner neglected him, but oh well, we move on. Nala is a pain in my metaphorical pixels, simply because she decided that if she can't stop me, the next best thing is to just turn into a moon and stall me. During the battle, she calls her goons to try and jump me over and over again. As a man trying to make his way, I'm being jumped in the middle of the street by some low-life hooligans. It's a constant thing, not just once do they try to jump me, but multiple times. Don't worry though, I'm well trained in the art of
my dad just beat the shit out of me!
Running away. Quite frankly, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of her Teletubbies, I'm sick of her turning into Moon Man, I've had enough. Radon, Radon, Radon. The cause of so many deaths. The cause of getting one shot. The cause of farming poor innocent enemies just for a little bit more health. Radon's ultimate move is the ability to absolutely just suck so hard that I can't resist and he pulls me in. However, I have a trick, and that trick is called using bleed arrows in order to give him hemorrhoids mid-battle for huge damage. I'm telling you, he absolutely does not want hemorrhoids, so he's going to do everything in his power to stop it. He goes so far as to explore space for a couple seconds in order to stop the pain. But it won't help him. He got the wrong ointment for them, and now he's going to suffer for the rest of his 30-second life. You see, I should have never been invited to the festival. In fact, that's right, I wasn't actually invited. I just kinda showed up when everyone was here and barged through. The whole battle is done from underneath his chunky body because personally I just want to pet his horse. Godfrey's ghost is there, and there's not much to say here. He can't be status affected, so it's literally just shooting him until he decides to haunt a new place. Dodge his toddler tantrum, shoot him, repeat, nothing more. Now that I've secured blood arrows, they're going to become a common theme of basically all the battles. In fact, they're going to be the main cause of damage in battles because status effects always find their way to be being strong like an ox. Morgott, however, doesn't like bleed arrows, so he does the only thing that makes sense. Flipping around and trying out for the gymnastic team over and over again. In fact, he flips around so much you would think he's in a video game or something, but seeing as how this is real life, it's unlikely. About halfway through the fight, his floodgates burst open from holding it in for the entire fight, and he just can't hold it any longer. So he lets loose everything, bodily fluids included, because it's so relieving. Honestly, it's disgusting, but I can understand sometimes you just can't hold it forever. And sometimes you just have to say screw what others think, I'm gonna shit right on the floor. And that's exactly what he does. Unfortunately, he does it a little too much, and it causes him to shrivel up from unloading so much fecal matter. Astel's fight is super mega Tootsie Roll boring. You know what I'm talking about, right? Tootsie Rolls are pretty bland and boring, just like Astel. He shoots lasers, slams his tail, and does a little ballerina twirl every so often. Not much is going on here, just shoot him, sometimes hit his head, most of the time hit his body and do considerably less damage and repeat. Bleed arrows help here, but not much, and since we're at Astel, we can get our world famous freeze arrows. Now, Fire Giant is interesting, not because he's a giant that shoots fire, but the fact that shooting bolts at his leg somehow makes it explode and break apart. I'm not sure how that really works out, but our hemorrhoid arrows and our newly obtained Antarctica arrows prove to do a healthy chunk from this hunk. In fact, healthy chunk is the wrong word, because considering the tiny mouse ant damage we do compared to his absolutely unneeded inflated red bar of goodness, it's pretty good. Obviously, after shooting him in the ankle, he's had enough of this, and the best thing for him to do is, you guessed it, rip off his whole leg like it's a fucking chicken. Of course, it all makes sense now. If you get shot in the leg too much, just rip it off and offer it to the fire gods for power. Oh my, why didn't professional athletes just do that? If you can't win a race, just rip off your leg, obtain the power of fire, and incinerate the competition. It's that simple. Anyway, eventually we hemorrhoid and freeze him enough that he fades away for good and we move on to literal hell. Godskin Duo is that fight that you hear online all the time. About how terrible it is, about how they abused the player, stole their shoes, and cut holes in their underwear. And they're right. I was there. I was the shoes.
What the fuck is this game about? What is it about?
But in all seriousness, this fight is just awful. Simply due to the fact that as you bleed and freeze targets, they become more resistant to it. So the more I status affect the Godskin Duo, eventually I won't be able to status affect them anymore. This is a problem because they chase you around like Jehovah's Witnesses, constantly begging for your attention. This leads to a 7-minute long fight with them, and if the big one decides that all of a sudden now he understands how physics work and is able to make his way up the slanted slope, you're done. You are a prime suspect number 1 for his Nakado Avocado cosplay. And whether or not you want to be isn't an option because he's robbing you of it all. Your life, your innocence, and most importantly, your food. This ultimately causes some friction between the skinnier one because he gets a little to no attention because he actually plays fair. He doesn't bother you too much if you just leave him out of the battle. He'll mind his own business and follow you around like a lost puppy, hoping you'll play with him, but you won't because we hate his friend. Now, Dragon Lord Plastic Duplex is one of those fights that you'll be like, huh, this is pretty cool. I mean, what's not to like about it? It's a dragon. He shoots Mountain Dew Code Red all over the arena. He's got yellow piss breath. He's a swell dragon. Well, I'm here to tell you he's not. Not in the slightest. You see, Dragon Lord is so arrogant and so uncaring about your time that during the middle of the battle, he just leaves. Yup, just flies in the sky and teleports. It's unbelievable how he has no regard for your time. But not only that, he's highly resistant to hemorrhoid and Alaska damage. This ultimately causes a conflict of interest, you see. I like to fight the boss and be like, oh man, look at us scrapping here, aren't we devious? But I can't do that because Dragon Lord decides when he wants to teleport, he decides when he wants to fly away and make me wait, and he decides when to do his Armageddon yellow lasers that explode into nukes. I mean, seriously, these lasers are so over the top, I can't tell you how many times these lasers barely clip my toe and I just evaporate. I don't even die, I literally just get knocked to the home menu and my console gets turned off. Anyways, eventually he stops running away and goes down, allowing us to move on to Malekith. Is what I would say, but when I was putting everything together, I could not for the life of me find the fight for Malekith with the Arbalest, so instead I'm using a clip from when I used the jar cannon.
Stupid fucking mistakes, man.
Next run tease perhaps? Question mark, question mark? But anyway, let's move on. After Malekith's little tantrum he throws and destroys the capital, I decide it's time to stop the incest lover that is Moog. For far too long was he doing inappropriate things to his half-brother Mikola. So I decided to put a stop to him because that's sick. And what better way to do that than shooting him with crossbow bolts? Now, we all know he loves blood. He's obsessed with it. I mean, look at his whole palace. Blood everywhere. So it's only right that we give him hemorrhoids so he can have as much blood as he wants. Now, we don't want to hurt him too much though, so we cool him down with Alaska bullets as well. However, the most interesting thing about the fight is the fact that we run up and down the arena because his trident is longer than my forehead. This thing hits you from so far away, it's actually unbelievable. But if we use the gravestones to Call of Duty block him, we can get some easy hits on him, which will eventually lead to him saying ouch and stopping his incestuous ways, which brings us to Rykard. Rykard is the type of fight that I hate in FromSoftware games. Gimmick fights make me puke, they make me sick, they make me mad, and they're pretty cool the first time around. Obviously, it wouldn't be a From game without a gimmick fight, and it's pretty rad and neat the first time doing it, right? Well, that doesn't mean I want to do it every single time I fight the boss.
And I'm the first person to stand up and say, this is fucked, this is not right, this is not cool, this is fucking bullshit. This is fucking bullshit.
I mean, his health pool is so big because they want you to do the gimmick, and it's only really possible to not spend 20 minutes on the fight if you use status effects, which work wonders, but anything else turns into a snore fest. Anyways, I don't like this fight at all, so there's not much to say or talk about simply because I don't want to. Moving on to Gideon. You know, Gideon's a funny guy. He's been the center of a lot of people one-shotting him, stun-locking him, or just absolutely deleting him from the game. However, when you actually use ranged combat against him, he becomes a nightmare. Imagine an Elden Ring esport, where you have everyone competing in PvP and playing for the chance to see a real-life Rani cosplay. Well, Gideon is the top of the league. He's the final boss before you get that sweet euphoria of Blue Lady. He's a sweat lord. He tries so hard to dodge everything, I literally resort to third-person peeking him like Gears of War just to stand a chance. Just to catch him off guard for half a second so I can barely hit him because he was so distracted by the cosplay he didn't see me. He's a nightmare, he is a true gamer, but ultimately I win the event and move on to my wrestling debut. Hoaraloo is a fight that just really feels like deja vu. Probably because it's literally just the same fight as Ghost Godfrey, except you can use Hemorrhoid and Alaska on this one, so it makes it much faster. Oh yeah, he also makes his tantrum stomps be worldwide, but that's not important. What's important is the fact that he's shirtless now. Holy cow. I'm gonna pass out if this keeps up, but I must stay focused. Hemorrhoids work great because he's shirtless now, as well as Alaska, but be careful if you stare too long, you'll get grabbed and scooped up by this hunk when you least expect it. A lot of the time you can just dodge his grabs and shoot him, but I'm bad and want to be grabbed by him, so I let him. Keep blasting away and eventually we can move on to Radagon. But not before paying Melania a visit. At first when I fought Melania, I thought to myself, this is bullshit. Melania is a cheater. I just want to see her feet, but eventually I came to my senses and realized Melania's fight is super poetic. It's a beautiful dance of baiting her attacks, countering, and watching her movements like a hawk waiting for her next move. It's probably my favorite fight of the run, and it's the one that I remember the most. She walks towards me a little too long, and I know waterfowl won't come out. She sidesteps 3 times, and I know waterfowl is probably coming out. She has a lot of mannerisms that can be observed and studied. It's beautiful. Her second phase, however,
and I've got to say in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
is a miserable train wreck of rejection, emotions, and sadness. She loses her gracefulness. She does 15 attacks right after each other. She tricks you with stopping her attack, but then she does it anyway just to spite you. Not to mention her stupid skeleton dance party she has. I didn't even invite these people to my house, yet they come here and ruin my fun. She also becomes more resistant to hemorrhoids since the first phase was full of them, but whatever, we move on to the finals. Radagon, Radagon, Radagon. Everyone hated your fight when the game came out. They said your fight was trash. They said the fight was unfun. But I don't think they tried using ranged weapons on you. Because if they did, they would have castrated the creator of Radagon. They would have started riots to get over how bad the fight was. He blocks and parries everything that he sees. Nothing gets by this guy. He's got one sharp eye and it's irritating. The fight is so long and miserable, you have to catch him off guard, but it's impossible. He's all benevolent. He's everywhere. He's a demon, except he still gets affected by Alaska even if he blocks the bolt, so that's a positive. But everything else is sadness incarnate, and I hope I never see him again. Elden Beast, the final fight. The almighty space whale that can't be affected by any status effects. Surely he's going to be a long and hard fight that will take ages. Not really, he goes down like a chump because he's super slow and easy to read.